Hello, everyone. It's Monday, and this is Outnumbered. I'm Kayleigh McEnany. Joining me today, Kennedy, Dr. Nicole Saphier, Morgan Ortegas, and Todd Pyro. 29 days, that's it, until midterm elections arrive. But instead of focusing on the voters here at home, guess what Democrats are doing? Well, they're taking their fundraising efforts overseas. California Congressman Adam Schiff and New York Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney were spotted sipping wine and eating hors d'oeuvres on a balcony at an event in Paris, France. They stayed at a swanky hotel, of course, during the European tour to fundraise from Democrats living abroad. Mike Lawler, the Republican candidate against incumbent Maloney, tweeting the picture of Maloney from his, quote, jaunt to Paris, Switzerland, and London. Lawler says he's been, quote, speaking directly to voters across the district instead of gallivanting around the globe. I mean, Kennedy, we all love wine and hors d'oeuvres and Paris, France, and Geneva, Switzerland.
Wonderful.
But America is suffering from crippling inflation, rising gas prices.
Absolutely.
And impending Armageddon, if you listen to the president.
So I look at this and I look at these congressmen and I think, read the room. Like, what are your constituents thinking? Not everything is a cash grab in order to maintain power. You know, think about the people in your district who are having a hard time buying groceries, you know, who are worried about what their kids are being taught in schools. Look at the uncertainty in places like California with the border. And, you know, these two people from different coasts have absolutely no idea what's going on with people, you know, not only in the middle of the country, but people in their districts who are being squeezed in the middle. I hope it was fun. I hope it was worth it. I hope they get voted out.
I do too. DCCC spokesperson Morgan, his response was really interesting. He said Chairman Maloney has been on a 10-city, 10-day fundraising swing, raising millions of dollars for candidates who will help stop MAGA Republicans who want to pass a national abortion ban from gaining control of Congress. And I mean, you compare that to Leader McCarthy, perhaps a speaker,
right. Yeah.
25 states. He's been to 40 congressional districts just in August, all of which happen to be here in the United States.
Yeah, I think that this is a sign that Democratic leadership has given up, especially in the House on the midterms, because there is no way that you would go overseas if you're serious about trying to keep the majority. There's just no way. I'm working with candidates around the country, working with them on national security issues. You can't get them out of their district. You can't get them out of their state because they are fighting tooth and nail to win. And we're also seeing, so we've got them sipping champagne or, okay, maybe white wine, right, in Paris. We also have Nancy Pelosi and her team leaking that as soon as she's kicked out, she would like to be ambassador to Italy. So for me, as someone who knows campaigns and politics, this is a sign that they have basically given up on trying to keep the majority.
It's a fascinating point you make about Nancy Pelosi, who's also been going overseas for a number of trips. Dr. Saphier, meanwhile, here at home, right here in New York, you have Lee Zeldin. I saw this live last night, this press conference he did after there were gunshots by his house. His daughters were home. He and his wife were not. Take a listen to what he had to say.
They were at the kitchen table, they were doing homework. All of a sudden, they're hearing multiple gunshots. They then hear screaming. They run upstairs, lock themselves in the bathroom. One of my daughters calls 911, the other one calls us. This is something where you had two people who got shot who were essentially laying down about 10 feet from where they were doing homework. One of the bullets landed about 30 feet from where the girls were doing homework. And yeah, this hits extremely close to home. It showed up at our front doorstep. There are a lot of parents, there are a lot of families dealing with this reality of rising crime in New York. For us, fortunately, my daughters knew exactly how to respond. But listen, they were just sitting there at the kitchen table doing homework, and bullets started going off all around them.
So that was from this morning on Fox and Friends. Last night he did a press conference, many of the same points, and it was just jarring to see a nominee for a major party facing a Democrat who doesn't care about crime have to talk about gunshots mere feet from his daughter. That's where the victims were.
Kaylee, this shooting happened at 2 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon, and not in one of these modern-day Gotham urban democratic cities like New York City and San Francisco and New Orleans and these other places. This happened in the suburbs of Long Island. And I can tell you right now, just like we saw when they started sending some of the illegal immigrants from the border cities up into these democratic cities, maybe you need to have violence actually come out into what we once considered the safer suburbs for people to actually start paying attention. Now, Lee Zeldin, he has had tough on crime stances, and the fact that his attacker from the summer got let out without bail because of the soft on crime bail reforms the very next day, and the fact that now this bullet landed 30 feet from his daughter in the safety of their own home, you can sure as hell know that he is not going to be soft on crime if he is elected governor of the state. Maybe you actually need to see some of these violent crimes go to the governor's mansion, or what do they call it, the New York executive mansion. That's where Kathy Hochul gets to sit. And reminder, all of her properties are in upstate New York, nowhere near where any of this crime happens.
But I mean, we don't want violence perpetrated near any politicians, regardless of party.
Thank you, Kennedy, so much for pointing that out. That's not what I'm calling for at all. But unfortunately, a lot of people sit in the suburbs. They sit feeling like they are safe, and the crime that we see in a lot of these urban cities will never get to their front door. And so they don't have to actually take it seriously. We're seeing, as I had mentioned, the migrants being shipped to some of these smaller towns that have never dealt with illegal immigration. All of a sudden, now they are trying to figure out how they can help fix it. Maybe that actually needs to happen for people to actually start taking the increase in violent crime seriously. It's not just going to be in the urban cities. It's going to affect all of us, big and small towns.
Yeah, two random attacks, okay? And they were not targeted. The spokespeople came out and said, hey, this was not targeted towards his daughters. But that makes it almost worse. It's not like, this was random crime that happened. This was not some targeted political attack. This is happening to everyone, not just Lee Zeldin, but people everywhere across New York City and state.
It's not just New York City and state. I worry this is the entire country. And I've gotten a little pushback on this, but I feel like at this point in 2022, no place is safe in America anymore. And that is a scary proposition, because when I go home, I assume that in Tony Little, Connecticut, I'm safe. Now I worry. By the way, this A block, quite a juxtaposition. You have elitist Democrats enjoying Parisian cocktail parties while the rest of us try to survive in a dystopian America where we're literally fighting for our lives when it comes to crime. As for the crime aspect of Lee Zeldin's platform, boy, politically, this was a great move to have happen to him. But any dad in his position knows you would never make that exchange any day of the week, and you could see how he was shaken by this because it involved his two daughters. And as somebody who has two daughters myself, boy, when I hop in that car every day and come to work, I worry that I'm leaving my family alone. He was going to work. He was doing a campaign event. He left his family alone. That is every father's worst nightmare. You could see it shook him. And I hope the people of New York wake up and realize you need to elect people that are going to keep that stuff from happening.
Kennedy, thank God that they're okay, but this was not one lunatic in a targeted political attack. This happens to so many people. I've seen a coffin with a 1-year-old in it, a Coco Melon coffin here in New York that happened 2 years ago. This is happening, it seems like daily, where young children are targeted, the victims of random attack, and it's just getting worse.
Yeah, and I have to give the congressman credit, because he obviously has had these conversations with his children and his family, and this is something that parents can internalize from this. When there is gunfire outside of your home, don't go out and try and figure out what it is. Lock yourself in a safe place and call 911. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. The obviously really smart girls, beautiful family. And, to your point, this is happening everywhere. And it feels like we're under barrage from all sides. We were talking about the economy and out-of-touch politicians. Like, they won't acknowledge inflation. They won't acknowledge that there are bad people out there who should be kept off the streets. And there are good people incarcerated who should be let out. It is so completely out of balance. And, this is one of those things where people who don't pay a lot of attention to politics, these are those issues where they go, you know what? I'm done with it. I'm done with these people in power, and we have to have some sort of a shift.
Well, sip the champagne, Adam Schiff, because voters are coming Tuesday, November 8th. Get ready.